Thank you for joining Asia's best radio station.
Download latest podcasts of Carry On Harry Show on iTunes.
Now shake hands with celebrities on Singapore talk show Carry On Harry.
Inviting music composers, producers, artists on board on Carry On Harry Talk Show for connecting you to worldwide audience. Write to Harry Johal at carryonharry.com or visit www.carryonharry.com for more details.
Hi friends, welcome to yet another show with your talk show host Harry Johal. Today we are going to invite book author Susannah Cord on Carry On Harry Talk Show for the very first time to talk and discuss about her newly released.
Hello.
Hi Miss Susannah, this is Harry calling from Singapore.
Hello, Harry.
How are you, ma'am?
I am just fine, thank you. How are you?
I am also perfectly fine. It's a wonderful morning over here in Singapore, and I just believe that your end is also like very cozy and nice place.
Oh, I wish. It's very cold. It's evening, it's dark, and it's freezing temperatures.
Anyway, we are over here to discuss about your book.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Except my book is called Each Wind That Blows.
Okay, fine. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, when did you actually start, writing, and how did the natural progression happen for you that you started publishing your, books?
Well, I've always written ever since I was a little girl, ever since I could. That's always been something that I did, a hobby. But my main passion was really to do with the horses and training horses. And so that's what I did for many years. And I just wrote on the side. But along the way, I published a children's book, and I was published through an equestrian magazine. And, little by little, it just became, I wanted to write more and ride less. And with this book, I was supposed to actually go to Africa and write some articles for the magazine that I was writing for. And when I came back, it turned into a book. And so since then, I've decided, well, I think that's really what I should be doing now. So I've started another novel, and then I'm on to some other books. But, of course, this one just came out recently, and I'm busy getting that out there. And I'm excited about this book. This is my first real big book, so to speak, to put out there.
Correct. And, there's always, something, which really inspires a person to, pick a particular theme or pick a particular, storyline. What prompted you to, pick Each Wind That Blows as your first book, into the publishing world?
Well, it was really sort of, it just kind of happened. It wasn't something I sat around and thought, oh, good, I'm going to do this. I mean, like I said, I thought I was going to go to Africa on this riding safari, and it was going to be a lot of fun because I was returning to Kenya after 30 years. I spent some years there as a child. And to go back there and be on horseback, I couldn't think of a better way to return to Africa. But I thought just that I would have fun, and then I would write a couple of articles about it for the magazine. But instead, I just had this really powerful and profound experience of having a lot of things and memories start to coalesce and come together for me, both as concerned my childhood, both in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, and in Denmark, and how all of those situations affected me, and also the death of my mother 4 years before I went back to Kenya. And when I was in Kenya, there's something fantastic that happens to a lot of people when you go to Africa. There's an incredible, I don't know exactly what the word is, but energy, for lack of a better word, that a lot of people find it very powerful experience, and it certainly was for me again. And so a lot of things came up that I had to look at and that I had to experience while I was there, and that along with the safari itself. When I came back and started writing about that, I needed to put it all down on paper. And little by little, I realized that I actually had a book here and a lot of things that I needed to write about.
Correct. So basically, we can say that it's a work of fiction, or is it a work of non-fiction?
Oh, no, it's definitely non-fiction. I think the closest thing to describe it would be to say that it's a memoir.
Correct. And the title of the book, Each Wind That Blows, it sounds something like, a very creative, expression. How did you, came to this particular, decision that you will be putting the book as Each Wind That Blows? And then there's a lovely, the book cover is lovely, where I see, that there are fields, and then there's a face of yours, and then there's, this deer, and, and the wind is blowing. How did it actually, happen?
Well, yeah, the name "Each Wind That Blows" is one of my husband's favorite expressions. Is from Shakespeare, the expression that I am a feather for each wind that blows.
Wow!
And I use that expression in the book because it describes my life quite aptly. I have let myself get blown around a bit and kind of followed my bliss and followed my passions, not necessarily taking a particularly straight road to where I am today.
Correct. And while you were, writing this book, it's always,
And so when I...
Yes. Sorry, you were telling me something. Yes.
Oh, just that, I was trying to think of a title for the book, and I was going through it and thinking about it, and then that quote jumped out at me. I thought, that actually describes the content of the book very, very well. And I liked it. It's a lovely phrase, but it also describes my journey through life very, very well. So there you go. And then the picture is one that my dear friend and wildlife photographer, Billy Dodson, took for me. And then he had the one of the impala that I just loved, and he has generously allowed me to use that for the cover because we spent time in the Masai Mara together. A year after that, I returned to go on another riding safari with a photographer and a videographer. And we all work together, so I'm working on using that material to do something very special with that.
Correct. And while you were, writing these memoirs about your life and your experiences in Africa, did you at that time when you were, going through all those experiences, this kind of a thing was there within your mind that one day you will be, writing, all these things and you will be publishing it and, making it reach to the audience? And what sort of audience were you aiming at?
Well, first of all, I'd never in a million years dreamed that I would write about all of these things. I'm a very private person, and I could not imagine writing about my childhood or my mother's death or how it affected me and letting other people read about it. So that was actually something that I really had to be coaxed into doing that. Initially, I wrote a book that touched very briefly on little things that came up during the safari, but was mostly about the safari. But I touched on, I thought about my mother, or I thought about this happened in my childhood. And I also touched upon how being back in Kenya was a profoundly spiritual experience for me. But again, I kept that very, very short and just a little bit here and there because it's very private. But everybody who read it kept coming back and saying, you're not telling us enough. You're not telling us enough. We want to know more about your mother. We want to know more about your childhood. What's this about God? And so finally I had to give in, and I did a major rewrite and added in these storylines about my childhood and about my mother that have made the book a lot stronger, and I'm getting a very, very positive response to it because of that, I think. So, no, it was never intentional. And I, when I write, I really don't write with a particular audience in mind. The same was true of my children's book, Fenella. I really just write the story that I feel I need to tell, and then I figure the right audience will find it. But I really don't sit down and try to tailor it for anybody but myself, to tell you the truth. I tell the story as I need to tell it.
Correct. That's great to know about. It looks to me like I'm right now also exploring your website, which says that Susannah Cord is a book author, horsewoman, amateur nature photographer, and you seem like a very, person connected to nature and life, which is beyond, just like the human experience that we have, in big cities and, skyscrapers and all those things. So personally, how would you describe yourself?
As you say, I'm a nature lover. I'm a country girl. I'm very fortunate. I live in the country. I live on a horse farm. We have animals.
Wow.
Dogs, cats, horses, donkeys, and I couldn't imagine living any other way. And I'm definitely the happiest when I'm out in nature one way or the other. And to be out there on horseback the way I was in Kenya, being out in the middle of the wilderness like that, and coming across lions and cheetahs and leopards and elephant and giraffes, etc., on horseback. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary. And I couldn't be happier than when I'm out there doing just that. So, I enjoy going to the city once in a while. It's fun. It's different. It's a very different energy, vibe. But within a few days, I'm ready to go back to the country. I need some trees. I need some grass around me, some flowers.
Well,
but I'm definitely a nature chick.
Well, definitely, like you are describing, and like I'm visualizing, all those things. And since we have not been, used to, those kind of things in our real life, but we have seen such things, existing in Hollywood movies. So somewhere, those shots are playing in my mind, those fields and wind is blowing, and, you're describing what life, where you are living it. I am very much sure my listeners will also some way, feel connected to, this kind of a lifestyle which you are living, staying with horses and, big fields and nature around all this. So it's quite, I can understand, ma'am, that your book is definitely going to be, a reader's delight, especially for those people who want to know more about, what the life is all about, staying close to the nature. So after the publication of this book, lots of feedbacks might have come to you. Would you like to share a little bit about, what the readers have really expressed to you, about your book when they read about the things that you have written in it?
Oh, sure. It's, the interesting thing is that everybody who reads it gets something a little different from it, probably because there are 3 storylines. Yes, from my readers. Yeah, it's fun. It's very interesting because everybody gets something a little bit different from the book. I think mainly because there are 3 different storylines that are all equally important within the book. There's the safari itself, the adventure of being on horseback, encountering all these animals, and the way it feels being in nature like that. And then there's the storyline, which is referring back to my experiences as a child, both in Africa and in Denmark, and what it was like going back and forth between such different cultures. And then thirdly, there's the storyline that relates to my experiences around the time that my mother was passing away. And then fourthly, really, there's a 4th storyline that is kind of weaving through there very gently, because what Kenya in effect did was help me reconnect with faith, with a sense of connection to God, universe, source, however you choose to call it. And so everybody who reads it comes away with something a little bit different as far as what they were needing to hear, I guess, which storyline that most relates to whatever they've been through or experienced themselves. But I've had everything from people can't wait to go to Africa to ride to I did a reading just a few days ago where literally the several people were in tears because of their personal experiences, either with their spiritual life or with a loved one passing away, and that they felt that my experience somehow resonated with theirs. So and then of course there are people that ride themselves that get a lot out of the idea of goodness gracious being on a horse in Africa. So but it's been very positive and really interesting actually to get people's feedback to see what they get out of it, because it's not always what I would expect.
Correct. Ma'am, everyone, feels very comfortable, expressing, or writing or, singing or, any sort of art form within their own genre of, expertise. Do you have any, desire that you will be attempting something very different after this book?
I'm actually working on a work of fiction right now, but even that's not, it's not something really new to me, because I've never really thought of myself as one kind of writer. For a long time I just wrote short stories and poetry and prose, and then for a long time all I did was write my column for the Equestrian magazine and maybe journal a little bit. Then I wrote a children's book, simply because that idea came to me, and I was creating a story for my niece, and I thought, that's kind of a cute story, and it was her favorite, so I wrote that down. And then this happened, so I never really thought of myself as any particular writer, so it's really just whatever idea and passion grabs me at any one time. But if I were to step outside of my comfort zone, it would be something like singing in public. That would be far outside my comfort zone.
Fine. Yep.
Yeah.
And
but I am working on a work of fiction is my next project.
That's lovely. And when you decide about writing about those stories, is it that you have those kind of things already shaping up in your mind before you actually decide to write about it, or is it like sometimes when you sit down and then, thoughts come to you, and, the characters begin to shape up within your mind, and you begin to write, those things, and ultimately those characters, inspire you to, build up a storyline around it?
Oh, definitely the latter. I start out with a vague idea. I go, wow, wouldn't it be fun if? And then I start there. And then I'm usually as surprised as anybody where the story ends up going. It's most often not where I thought it was going. So I don't sit down and plot it out in advance. I have a general idea of where the story is going and the protagonist, antagonist, how things are going to work out. But it's kind of like having a roadmap and saying, well, I want to go from here to here to here, the big spots, but how I actually get there, I'm not exactly sure. I might take a shortcut here, and I might take a scenic route there.
Correct.
So it's definitely something. I kind of make it up as I go along. Of course, in terms of each wind that blows, that's a work of nonfiction. So what was surprising to me there was the flashbacks, the memories that I ended up sharing that I had never thought in a million years I would be sharing.
Fine. Ms. Susannah, I want to know your point of view, because many, book authors come and, they share their writing process, how they develop the story and plot line, and, some also tell about, that they have to prepare some kind of a structural, form of, template before they actually venture out into, writing a book which has to be published. Do you think you follow that kind of a pattern where you decide about, a particular template or something?
No, I really don't. That has never worked for me.
Yeah.
What I do is I sit down and I write without thinking twice. I simply sit down and write whatever comes. But then I am a prolific editor. I will edit and re-edit many, many, many times. But as I initially sit down and write, I don't try to stick to anything. I want to have complete creative freedom in that moment, and then I can go back and structure and restructure later as necessary and edit it until it works in my estimation. And then I'll have people read it, and then I get other people's feedback on it and I re-edit. But I'm a little bit claustrophobic about thinking too much in the beginning ahead of time and structuring and planning too far ahead. That makes me feel a little claustrophobic. So no, I just kind of turn the faucet on, and when I've run out of stuff, then I'll go back and then starts the editing and perhaps a little restructuring.
Yeah, I think that's a great thought, because why I basically asked you about this, because sometimes the new authors, they, feel a bit scared about, picking up their pen. They think that it's too technical to develop, and it's just you have to follow a particular, style and, structural form of writing. But when people like you, they come forward and share their natural way of, picking up a way of, developing their own method. This encourages those newcomers, new book authors and writers to, that they have, if they want to try, just give it a try, and then, move ahead. And I think message coming from you, since you have already been into the world of writing and you have already published your book. So this comes as a helping, advice for the new writers to follow this kind of a pattern also.
Well, I think that's wonderful. Thank you for saying that. I'd be delighted if this gives somebody confidence to just go for it, because that's all I've ever done is just sat down and gone for it. And so far, it's worked quite well for me. And I think that everybody's going to have their own style. Everybody's going to have their own approach, and we need to be okay with that. There's no one way that's going to work for everybody. There just isn't. So, it's important to have grammar and punctuation and that sort of thing. And if you're not good at that, you want to get somebody to help you with that. But other than that, you have to find your own voice and let that express through you, however that works for you.
I would like to, offer my platform to you, ma'am, before we, summarize today's talk about your book. What are the platforms where, people can get to know more about, yourself and, your book? What are the platforms where this book is available, so that, they can know more about you, and at the same time they can be updated about, what are the new developments that are taking place at your end?
Thank you. That's lovely. Thank you. Yeah, it's my website is susannahcord.com, and the book is on Amazon, but it can also be found at eachwindthatblows.com. And those are really the two main websites for that, where people can find out more and keep up with me. And Susannah Cord is spelled SUSANNAHCORD.com.
Fine. That was a lovely piece of information from you, ma'am.
Thank you for being in tune with Best Talk Show. Carry On Harry with entertainment editor Harry Johal on balaballaradio.co.uk. Inviting music composers, producers, artists on board on Carry On Harry Talk Show for connecting you to worldwide audience. Write to Harry Johal at carryonharry.com or visit www.carryonharry.com for more details.